Good morning. I'd like to welcome you here this morning on behalf of the family. I know it is a great comfort for your presence here this morning. They have asked that we have a congregational singing. The songs will be on the screen behind me. Also, if you would like to have a look. Some glad morning when this life is over, to a home on God's celestial shore, I climb away. I fly away, oh glory, I fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I climb away. When the shadows on the sun have grown, I fly away. Like a bird from prison bars have flown, I fly away. I fly away, oh glory, I fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I fly away. To a land where joy shall never end, I fly away. I fly away, oh glory, I fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I fly away. No tears in heaven, no sorrows given, all will be glory in that land. There will be no sadness, all will be gladness, when we shall join that happy band. No tears, no tears, no tears of pain, sorrow and pain will all have flown. No tears, no tears, no tears of pain, no tears in heaven will be known. Glory is waiting up yonder, where we shall spend an endless day. There with our Savior will be forever, where no more sorrow can dismay. No tears, no tears, no tears of pain, sorrow and pain will all have flown. No tears, no tears, no tears of pain, no tears in heaven will be known. Some morning yonder will cease to ponder o'er things this life has brought to view. All will be clearer, save ones be dearer, in heaven where all is big and new. No tears, no tears, no tears of pain, sorrow and pain will all have flown. No tears, no tears, no tears of pain, no tears in heaven will be known. We're part of the family that's been born again, part of the We all feel his free. When he passed through the valley, we all feel relief. Together in sunshine, together in rain, together in victory, through his precious name. And sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we cry, sometimes we share together heartaches and sighs. Sometimes we dream together of how it will be when we all get to heaven, God's family. And the songs go before us, we'll all meet again, just as like a city, as we enter in, there'll be no more parting. Jesus will be together forever, God's family. And sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we cry, sometimes we share together heartaches and sighs. Sometimes we dream together of how it will be when we all get to heaven, God's family. When we all get to heaven, God's family.
I'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you today. Celebrate my means life. You know, y'all never knew she's a force to be reckoned with in many good ways. She only wanted what was best for all of us. We didn't always see eye to eye. Very good one. Would you bow with your head, please? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for each and every one of the people that have came today to celebrate the life of me. Father, I ask you to please be with Paul and Whitney and bring them health and wellness to your will. Father, I ask you to please be with each and every one of these people as they go home today. Keep them safe. Watch over them. Guide, guard, and direct each and every one of us as only you can in a way that's pleasing to your sight. It's in Christ's name I pray.
A force to be reckoned with. Absolutely right. Kathryn Jefferson Gromowsky was freed from unearthly confines and mortal body on Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. She was born on August 20th, 1935, in Bovina, Texas, to Charles and Maureen Jefferson. Kathryn was, by all accounts, a precocious, if not sometimes ornery, child. Can't imagine ornery being associated with Kathryn. Her sister and she would later reminisce that she was a female Dennis the Menace. In 1950, she met a lanky vagabond, locally and affectionately called Polar, from St. Joseph, Missouri. William was part of a traveling work crew in town, working construction of Bovina's Shirley Anderson grain elevator. They were married in October of 1951. And their young family quickly grew with the birth of Jan, followed by William Jr., Willie, and finally Jill. They made their first home in Bovina. William worked for Triplet Cattle Company, and in 1953, Kathryn took a job as a switchboard operator with Southwestern Bell Telephone in Clovis, New Mexico. At the time of her retirement in 1974, she was administrative assistant to the head of operations. I think if she'd have waited until 75, she'd have been head of operations. In 1962, William and Kathryn began farming east of Bovina, and in 1963, they moved their family out to the land they farmed near Hub, where they lived and were fixtures in the Hub community. Their transition to the occupation of farming was truly in every sense of the word a partnership. There was not an acre planted, a row harvested, or a cow bought and sold that Kathryn didn't have an entry for on her hand-kept green ledgers. Every corporation needs a keen and savvy CFO, and Kathryn capably filled the role. Kathryn and William were active leaders in the Bovina Church of Christ. They served the congregation in thankless roles too numerous to mention, but many may remember most vividly that they jointly counted and accounted for the collection plate each week. In 2004, they retired from farming and moved to Freona. In her newfound spare time, Kathryn began working again, first with Hypro Feeds, then as a bookkeeper and helping prepare income taxes for Sandra Johnson, CPA, where she never met a stranger. They were faithful members of this congregation in Freona. She and William often opened their warm and welcoming home for numerous dinner parties, hosting both church and community friends. Kathryn had a special place in her heart for young couples just beginning their lives together in her small town. She and William befriended many young couples, young families, who were taking their first steps onto the path they began as husband and wife this very week 7 decades ago. She was preceded in death in 1944 by her sister Betty, and later her parents and great-granddaughter Sage Massey. She is survived by her husband William, daughter Jan Smith and husband Steve of Sudan, son William and wife Christy of Amarillo, daughter Jill and husband Jason of Freona, and her sister Sandra Green of Wheat Ridge, Colorado. She will be remembered with abounding love as Mimi to 8 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, 10 brothers and sister-in-laws, dozens of nieces and nephews, and countless kids and adults who loved on her every chance they got. Family would like to say a special thank you to the nurses and attendants and staff of the Prairie Acres Nursing Home, who have so lovingly walked the journey alongside us during the last months and days of Mimi's life. I will say to that, on behalf of the family of Prairie Acres, we thank you for the high honor of being able to walk that journey with you, and you're now part of our family too. And so God bless you for that. When I think of Kathryn, think of a lot of things, to be honest. I was one of the probably many young preachers that she helped to grow. And William and Kathryn are doubly blessed because they put up with me when I didn't know what I was doing, and then they came here and I showed up and they figured out I still didn't know what I was doing. But they did the best they could. I remember in Bovina, also a new young couple, but my pickup met an unfortunate demise with a truck, and William loaned me his pickup Actually, Kathryn normally moves pickup. And it took me about 3 weeks to find one, so I felt really bad. So I waxed William's pickup before I gave it back to him, and he first Kathryn said I didn't need to do that, and William said I could borrow it any time. So they were just an amazing pair, and she was a force to be reckoned with. I was trying to think of words, and William would, if he had the opportunity to speak, he would tell me that I'm not being paid by the hour, so I'll be efficient. But I was thinking of words to describe Kathryn from my perspective, and strong is a good word. I saw tremendous strength in the last few weeks, beyond what most people would be strong enough to do. I thought of courageous because she courageously stared down an illness that did not get the best of her as she walked home with God. And then I thought of love. Kathryn knew how to love. And if it needed to be tough, she wasn't afraid to do that either. Paul wrote to the church in Corinth to remind them the power and significance of love. And he says, very simply, love is patient, love is kind. It is not jealous, love does not brag, is not arrogant, does not act unbecomingly, and I don't think she did act unbecomingly ever. It does not seek its own, is not provoked, does not take into account or wrong suffer, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. And Kathryn was amazing at love. Very, very simply put, it was a profound experience to be a part of her life. And if she needed to change her direction, she was not afraid to do that. And I love that about her. But the other thing, and I'll close my comments with this, is that you would find no one stronger in your corner. If you were about to breach the gates of hell, she would go there, snatch you back, and punch the devil himself. She loved people, and she loved all of us. So thank you all for being here today.
Walking alone at eve and in the skies afar, being the darkness come to the lovely silver star. I have a great delight in the wonderful scenes above. God in His power and might is showing His truth and love. Oh, for a home with God and His courts to rest, sure and faithful. Jesus Sing to me of heaven, sing that song of peace. From the toils that bind me it will bring release. Burdens will be lifted that are pressing so. Showers of great blessing o'er my heart will flow. Sing to me of heaven, let me boldly drink of its golden glory, of its pearly gleam. Sing to me when shadows on the evening fall. Sing to me of heaven's sweetest songs of all. Sing to me of heaven as I walk alone, dreaming of the comforts that so long have gone. In a fairer region from the angel throne, they are happy as they sing that old sweet song. Sing to me of heaven, let me boldly drink of its golden glory, of its pearly gleam. Sing to me when shadows of the evening fall. Sing to me of heaven's sweetest songs of all. Sing to me of heaven tenderly and low. Till the shadows o'er me rising swiftly go. When my heart is weary, when the day is long, sing to me of heaven, sing that old sweet song. Sing to me of heaven, let me boldly drink of its golden glory, of its pearly gleam. Sing to me when shadows of the evening fall. Sing to me of heaven's sweetest songs of all.
There are people in our lives that are pivotal in making us who you are. Mommy was the very best of that. There is not a time that I can think back to when she wasn't talking to me about how blessed she was, and for me to just look around and take in all the good that was right here in front of us. Whether it was when I was young and she lived out in a big house on the farm, or whether I was older and she lived in a quaint house in town, she was always thankful, always grateful for what God had given her, and always made wherever she was home. And I knew I wanted to be like that. She made everything feel special. She picnics on the floor in front of the TV with our sacred drink of Coke that we all wish was healthy. Oatmeal cream cookies, banana noon pies, orange juice with crushed ice, which is still the only way I will take it to this day. Rocking in the chair after a shower with her expert back scratches, and always a song of praise on her lips. Cousin performances on the stairs at Christmas time, when she made us all feel like there was no one better than us. Singing with us beside her at the piano, and all the simple, easy things that became the very special, treasured moments. Sometimes, as we were leaving her house, she would offer us any rose we desired from her garden, with an added, and pick one out for your mom, too. And in my young mind, I couldn't understand why she would allow us to take away from the beauty she had worked so hard for and tended to, while she was happily eager to cut it away in order to share with others. And I would gently hold my prized rose all the way home, treasuring and taking in its beauty and specialness for as long as I could. Because I had already learned from the flowers before that this gift would eventually wither and fade. And I know that God made flowers fade on purpose, to help each of us watching how two people from two completely opposite backgrounds could fight their differences to find a holy middle ground to stand on. How you could see by the way that they looked at each other that it was always worth it. Unless Mimi was tired of Paul talking forever on end, then you would see a look of total annoyance. But not for long, because he would always quickly win her back over, usually with that honoring grin of his. But if I were Paul, I would fight to stay on Mimi's good side too. Because in every sense of the word, she was comfort. Just walking in and being in her presence always put up my heart at ease. And when we lost our daughter, she didn't hesitate to pull the grown version of me up into her lap, like she had my daughter weeks before, and like she had been for me so many years before. She held me and talked about her mother losing her own daughter and how it was to lose a sister, and helping me to see what I wanted to be for myself and what I wanted to be for my family. She made candles, lit candles, and read all my letters to Sage. She sent me her own note about how nice it will be someday when she gets to hold Sage again, when she is in the glory land. And we've all known that her time is coming, that Parkinson's would eventually steal her away from us. And from the outside looking in, one might say that her fight was lost. But really, the truth of the matter is, she won. She lived fully, full of grace and peace and love and humor, a life full of faith and fellowship and service and singing, a life full of people whose lives were better simply for knowing her, a life full of enjoying the simple things, sharing everything, and being grateful for every moment along the way. Her life overflowed, and she would tell you that she lived richly. But really, we all know we were the ones that lived richly, because we were blessed to get to be loved by her. And I know so much of I am is because of her. Our dear sweet Winnie will be greatly missed, but we can still celebrate her departure, because we know with confidence that she has made it to where she has always wanted to go. She has finally made it to the glory land, and what a homecoming that must be. Sitting at the table with her Savior, a feast prepared for her that she didn't have to fix a bank for, although she might have preferred having her 2 cents put in about a thing or two. Fellowship with all the ones that have been loved by her, gone before her, and have a waiting for her arrival. My sweet girl back in her arms, and her sister by her side. Jesus saying, "Well done, good and faithful one." And I know there will be room made for that table. You will not sit at the kids' table. And I will be sitting with her at that table when it's our turn. I know that there will be a special place reserved just for Paul. And I know the rest of us that she has loved and walked with won't have to worry, wondering if we truly know how to get there, because she's always led the way. And I wouldn't be surprised if she had roses from the garden waiting for us when we get there. Thank you.
Over 30 years that I was blessed to know Kathryn. I have some very distinct memories. I bet some of these are going to sound familiar to family and friends. As has already been mentioned, I remember the beautiful woman dressed to the nines, every hair in place, perfectly applied makeup, simply beautiful. Saw that over and over and over. And speaking of perfection, I've never seen a lawn as beautiful as her lawn. Never known anybody to work as hard at keeping the lawn absolutely 5 minutes, she was out there hosing off the mud that had dropped off of the pickup because she wanted the driveway to be perfect. I remember the laugh. Do you remember that laugh? It was a high, shrill laugh, and I heard it most often in the church building, and it was one of those things you could be in almost any part of the building, and if you heard that laugh, you knew it was Kathryn, and you knew there was something that was funny. And of course, I remember the family. I remember all of the cuteness between she and William. I enjoyed particularly addressing William as Mr. Gromowsky. He would always say, heavy on the Mr. He loved to say that, loved to be addressed that way. And being in her home, sitting at her table. Now, I was always grown up by the time I got to sit at the table, so I never had to sit back in the laundry room or wherever else the little ones went. But it was one of the places, not the only place, but one of the places where typically the men sat at one table and the women sat at the other table. And Kathryn served. And the food, and I especially remember looking forward to her dessert. One of my favorites that she liked to serve was a fresh, hot brownie with vanilla ice cream and chocolate syrup on top. I looked forward to that. That was something. And to eat at her house was a special event. I also remember her faith. Again, those of you who knew her knew that throughout her life there were some hard spots. Several, as a matter of fact. And she held on and continued moving in faith. I want to tell you a single story. It's actually a fairly recent story that captures Kathryn and the influence that she has had on my life. Another member of our church had passed away, Ernestine Marshall. Ernestine and her husband Billy had been tremendous helpers, especially early in the farming career of William and Kathryn, had a tremendous example of faith and encouragement to them. Ernestine, a number of years older, passed away. And Bubby, of course, lives close, and Bubby and Linda were around, but the two daughters live in the Houston area, and one of them had been there not long before and had just traveled home and had to pack up and turn around and come home. So it took a while for the daughters to get there. And it just so happened that on the first night after she died, Billy, if you knew B.L. or Billy Marshall, there was one thing that B.L. was not going to miss, and that was any opportunity for food. Breakfast, lunch, supper, definitely. But if you could work in some ice cream in the middle, that was good. And you might even need something in the middle of the morning just to make sure. Well, Ernestine, of course, had cooked all of his life, and now she's gone. And it just so happened that my wife and I showed up over at B.L.'s house a little bit before supper time. At the end of the day, they had spent the day making funeral arrangements and doing all of the stuff that needed to be done, and we were sitting there and weren't quite sure what to say, weren't quite sure what to do. B.L. was pretty much lost, and up came a car full of Gromowskys, Kathryn, Jill, and Jan. And they came into the house bearing grocery bags full of food. The refrigerator was actually already nearly full, but all of a sudden, here were 3 Gromowskys that were putting together sandwiches, and we sat there for about 2 or 3 hours that night, eating and laughing and loving enjoying living together. I actually want to quote again a part of what Jenna just wrote. She put this on Facebook, and I saw it and copied part of it. This, I think, is as much of a description of Kathryn as you could come up with. Even better than Girl Dennis the Menace. That's hard to beat, but I think this is even better. She lived fully, full of grace and peace, love and humor, a life full of faith and fellowship, service and singing, a life full of people whose lives were better simply for knowing her. And then a little bit down, she would tell you that she lived richly. But really, we all know we were the ones who lived richly because we were blessed to get to be loved by her. What a beautiful description of an incredible woman. I want to remind you of one particular story, and it's already been referenced. You're familiar with it. But it's the story that Jesus told in Matthew chapter 25 of the parable of the talents. And I'm not going to read the story to you. Most of you are familiar with it. But there's several things that we need to get out of that. First of all, there is the general concept that everyone needs to be ready because you don't know when the master will return. And certainly, Kathryn lived in a way that she was ready. Secondly, we learn the importance of making the most of whatever it is we have. The emphasis in that particular story is not whether you have a lot or whether you have a little. It's not whether you make a lot or make a little. The whole point of the story is to take what God has given you and do the very best that you can with it. Kathryn did that. And there were times when Wig and Kathryn had a lot. There were also times when they didn't have so much. And yet they always wanted and I think achieved successfully doing well with what they had. And then the third thing, and this is such a beautiful and powerful statement. We learn the value of being rewarded. At the end of Jesus telling of the story, as he wraps up the first person, the man who had been given 5 talents and who had used that resource effectively, and then to the second man who had been given a lesser amount and yet also used those things powerfully and successfully, he said this: "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." And I think that's a beautiful description of what Kathryn right now is enjoying. The praise of the Creator with the absolute certainty that her life was lived in a way that was pleasing to Him and extremely powerful on lots and lots of people. It is a wonderful thing to be able to celebrate a life like Kathryn's. It's also wonderful, as difficult as it is, it's also wonderful to know that her suffering has ended. Praise God for the way that He blessed us through Kathryn.
Before we sing this last song, I would just like to say thank you to Jill and Jan, the family, for asking me to be a part of this service. It's a privilege and an honor to be asked to lead the singing today. Let's sing "Sweet By and By." We'll have a closing. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar, for the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore. We shall sing on that beautiful shore the melodious songs of the blessed, and our spirits shall sorrow no more. Not a sigh for the blessing of rest in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore to our bountiful Father above. We will offer our tribute of praise for the glorious gift of His love and the blessings that follow our days in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore. Would everybody please be standing? Dear God, thank you for Mimi. Thank you for her life. Thank you for her example to all of us. Thank you for our Nanny Lorraine, who held a seed of faith that has been harvested and resown hundreds of times over. We ask that you pour comfort and solace over all of us. Lord, please help us to see that your comfort comes to us most often by the hands of our friends and neighbors and our family, in small gestures, quiet whispers of consolation and offers of help, and in dishes of food and desserts. Thank you so much for this community. Thank you for our friends. Thank you for this family. We ask that you be with our Pa today. And please be with him. And if it's your will, help him to feel better. We ask a special prayer today for our brother Whitty. We ask that you watch over him and his caregivers and his doctors. And we ask that your will be done, not only for Whit, but for everything that each of us do every day. And we thank you most of all for your son Jesus and his example and his sacrifice, that we can follow our Kathryn and someday live with you in glory. And it's in his name that